It's Movie Time is brought to you by the Gateway Film Center, 1550 North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. For their details and showtimes online at gatewayfilmcenter.com.
The award-winning It's Movie Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to the shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Linda Baas McClelland.
And this is It's Movie Time. Now, Linda, night, and then it says under here, moves. So I take it this is a movie called Night Moves.
Correct.
It's an independent movie. But, Lindy, what does that mean, Night Moves?
Night Moves refers to the name of the boat that the kids use in the hatching of their plan to blow up a dam on the Oregon River.
Oh, my.
Yes, it starts out with two very idealistic college-age kids, and they get caught up in saving our planet and the salmon on the Oregon River.
Right.
Jesse Eisenberg plays Josh. I always wondered how he got to be a movie star. And now I understand it. He was excellent playing this humorless idealist. Watching his growing paranoia was very painful.
Well, he was quite good and more outgoing in Social Network.
Right.
This, to me, seems like a really good role for him as he broods, and
right.
There's so much that's interior and so little that's spoken.
Right.
They're very quiet people.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, they're idealists. So the three of them, the third one is Peter Skarsgård playing Harmon, an ex-Marine survivalist who's kind of the one who might survive out of the three if that's the way, if you were going to bet on it. Dakota Fanning plays Dina,
right.
the rich kid who's
right.
funding the whole thing.
Right, she works at a day spa.
Yeah.
And Josh works at a organic farm. I thought that was kind of interesting too. So they're all very much in the ecology and health and all that. But they focus their anger on a plot to blow up a dam on the Oregon River. And together they start hatching this plan. They buy the boat, which is called Night Moves, which I thought was interesting because Night Moves is a name of a song.
But so many critics say it's not that, and it might be a reference to a 1970s Gene Hackman crime movie.
That's right.
But I'm going to tell you here. If this survives, I'm going to read it to you because I think you're right. I think it does have something to do. Here are the lyrics that I think refer. I awoke last night to the sound of thunder. How far off I sat and wondered. Started humming a song from 1962. Ain't it funny how the night moves? When you just don't seem to have as much to lose. Strange how the night moves with autumn closing in. So that Bob Seger song,
right,
to me reflects.
It works well.
I mean, the danger of the evening, the adventure of it for them,
right,
and also where it's strange, very difficult to understand. And that's what I find so perplexing and so rewarding about this movie, is that I'm not sure why these three young people are really doing this. Of course, it's ecological reasons.
Right. And I think that's the thing that bothered me the most about the film, was they didn't seem to think this plan through or the effects that it would have. And the first part of the film for me was a bit tedious because, when they're buying the boat and they're buying the explosives.
It's slow.
But I wanted to ask you, how did the director, and her name is...
Right, there you go. And Kelly Reichardt.
Kelly Reichardt.
Right.
How does she use minimalism to slowly build the tension in this film?
Well, her other movie that I've seen, Meek's Cutoff, is also another very slow movie and set up in the Pacific Northwest about a wagon train in 1845 that gets lost because Meek has decided on a cutoff that isn't good. And so they face death, starvation, everything. And it's human beings against the environment. It's human beings alone. And I believe that the minimalism you're talking about is her most effective tool. I think she's very good at that. Suggesting, not hammering, not making judgments, so to speak. She needs to have very good actors to get across the feelings and the ideas without the great deal of exposition.
Right. How does she get the audience to really care about these three people?
Well, you and I are probably the only ones that care anyway. Because this is a very, not strange, but of course a very small independent movie. And there are friends that we have who are film literate who wouldn't take the slow pace of this film. And yet we have others like Helmut, a colleague of ours, who liked the film very much, but was aware of her slow, measured approach, which lets the characters reveal themselves. And that's what I think in the end, in your question, let me say this. I think that character will out here. I think it's character she's after. The whole idea of eco-terrorism, which they're a part of, is murky at best. How they bring it to that, I'm with you. You know, wish I could have seen a little bit more about these young people.
Right. I wish they had, like I said, thought out their plan and what they hope to accomplish by blowing up this one dam. I guess there are many dams.
There are a
Oregon
dozen of them. As one guy says, it's theater.
Right.
You know, and they realize that. It's all in the air of symbolism. They're not going to stop ruining salmon by just blowing up one dam. People are going to go ahead and do that, but they want to make the point.
Right. Like Josh says at one point, probably one of the few preachy moments in the film, he says, "We're killing salmon so people can use their iPods 24/7."
Right, that's a good one. And yes, there are only a few places where they do express their philosophy. Otherwise, I'll tell you, Linda, your question makes me think that in the end, Kelly Reichert is not interested in blowing up the dam. She's not interested in eco-terrorism. What she is interested in is showing how young people make decisions that radiate for the rest of their lives. That it doesn't make any difference if they're blowing up a dam. They make decisions, and some of them good, and maybe some of them bad. And when they're bad, such as this one, I mean, after all, somebody dies from blowing up the dam.
That's right.
They didn't mean
They
to.
didn't even think about that.
No. And so are the consequences of what they've done, and the consequences, of course, would be even greater than that. There are more people who would be affected adversely by that. They haven't thought that through. And so I believe she's looking at the flawed process of growing up and how some people make bad decisions and that they resonate for their whole life.
Right. But in the meanwhile, the movie doesn't really show you a right or a wrong, except for living with the consequences of your actions.
And that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
I like the fact that she doesn't preach at you.
Right.
I like the fact that we're talking about what are the real reasons for doing it.
Right.
Well, we've had kids. How can we really tell? Sometimes, why do they do that, we say. Even our own children, we can't quite understand. Why do they do that?
Right.
So she merely blows that up into a much bigger enterprise. And I think we get to know the three individual characters. And that's the other thing.
Right.
There's so little dialogue, but I think we really know who they are.
Right. And they all do a good job of acting. I think Jesse Eisenberg is wonderful as this kid is just starting to collapse with the results and the feelings and the guilt that he feels after they've done this. Dakota Fanning is, I think, excellent at being this wide-eyed innocent who begins to unravel after the deed is done.
Sure.
And is it Sarsgaard? Is that how you pronounce
Peter Sarsgaard, yeah.
I thought he was wonderful that, like, being a shifty-eyed ex-Marine, he just wants to blow something up.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be the anchor of this whole operation, and he's made some very bad mistakes already, and they're beginning to be wide-eyed at, we're relying on this guy.
Right. But the main message of the film, I think, is responsibility, becoming disillusioned, and then the corruption maybe of principle. I mean, something you feel so strongly about, but then you act on it and it all falls apart.
Yeah, it's flawed decision making.
Right.
However, there'll be nothing flawed about the grades that we award to this film.
I went
Linda
back
Baas McClelland,
Yes,
the
sir.
film is Night Moves,
Yes, sir.
and your grade is?
I think I will give it a B because I think it was such a well-made movie. Again, it's not terribly entertaining. It grips you. Oh, and I loved at the end because you don't realize how much the tension is building until the movie ends. And I loved your remark. That's one hell of an ending. So I would give it a B.
Okay, and I'm going to give it a B plus, and just because I probably liked it just a little bit better than you. But I'll tell you, one of the things I liked, and you mentioned the scene that I really love is when they're rowing their boat over to blow up the dam, and things aren't going well, and the tension that she builds up in that little scene when they're in the boat is better than any horror science fiction film thriller that you've ever seen in the quiet of that basin on top of that dam.
And the scenes in contrast of the families playing on the beautiful banks of the Oregon River
Yes.
so innocently, and the three are gliding
Yes.
off to do this dreadful thing.
Linda, it's summertime. We don't have a great many movies. This is a nice little independent movie that's currently playing at the Gateway Film Center. And for those who are listening to us around the country, look for it. It's called Night Moves.
Go see it.